When we study the Holocaust, we often focus on the numbers, the dates, and the final outcome. But genocide never begins with gas chambers. It begins quietly, with attitudes, with ideas, with everyday moments that seem harmless until they are not. And the 5 images I've chosen reveal how an entire society was manipulated and led step by step towards the destruction of millions of lives. The first image shows Nazi stormtroopers standing outside of a Jewish shop, blocking the doorway and holding signs that tell Germans not to buy from Jews. At first glance, it looks like a protest, but when you look more closely, you can see that this is the beginning of something much darker. This is the moment when hatred becomes public, when ordinary people walking down the street are pressured into making a choice: support their Jewish neighbors or abandon them. The soldiers' stiff posture, the signs, and the crowd passing by shows how discrimination was staged out in the open as a performance meant to intimidate people. This image captures the moment when hatred stepped out of its private whispers and onto the streets. This created an atmosphere where cruelty suddenly felt acceptable. The second image, showing the Nuremberg race chart, seemed harmless at first, almost like a diagram you would see in a classroom. But this is one of the most chilling pieces of evidence we have as people. It turns people into fractions, bloodlines, and categories. It reduces generation of identity, culture, and family. These aspects of someone's identity are put into boxes and labels. And once you can label people, you can separate them. Once you can separate them, you can exclude them. And once you can exclude them, almost anything becomes possible. This chart represents the moment when racism became a law, when Jewish was not just a faith or a culture, but a legal status that stripped people of citizenship, rights, and their place in society. The third image takes us to the Warsaw Ghetto. Hundreds of Jewish families crowd into the street, carrying bags, wearing coats too thin for the weather, holding onto children who look confused and exhausted. In every direction, you can see fear. This is segregation turned into a physical reality. These people are not moving voluntarily. They're being forced into a space designed for suffering, disease, and death. When you look at their faces, you can almost feel the moment they realize that the world outside the ghetto, their old lives, was gone. Homes, businesses, schools, dreams, weddings, traditions, all left behind. Ghettos were not just neighborhoods, but they were prisons, built in the middle of cities. They were meant to break people long before they were killed. The fourth image shows the aftermath of Kristallnacht. Shards of glass shattered everywhere, storefronts shattered, streets covered with destruction. It looks like a natural disaster hit. This was neighbors attacking neighbors. Firefighters were ordered not to put out fires in Jewish homes. Police were not told not to intervene. For Jewish families, you were not welcome here, and your suffering is now a spectacle. Kristallnacht was the moment where violence became unhidden. It was no longer something done quietly. It was loud, explosive, and meant to humiliate. This image shows an entire community being told through destruction that they had no place left in the country they had lived in for generations. The final image takes us inside a forced labor camp. Men sit at the benches, tools in their hands, faces hollow, bodies thin. There is no talking, no freedom, no identity, but just survival. These camps were not designed to keep people alive. They were designed to drain every last bit of strength people had before death. If you look at their eyes, you can see something beyond exhaustion. You can see at the moment they lost hope and became fragile. When someone forgets what their home life looked like, or the guards replacing everything that they know. This image represents the final stage of genocide, when the goal is no longer oppression, but destruction. And when we see these 5 images together, we see the full story. How society was shaped through terror, fear, propaganda, silence, until millions of people were gone. These photographs remind us that genocide doesn't burst into existence, but it is built, one choice at a time. It is built when people decide not to speak up, when laws go unchallenged, and when acts of cruelty go ignored. But the most important lesson these images give us, the one we most must carry, is none of this was inevitable. Every step, every law, every act of violence that was made by people who chose hatred over humanity, and every time someone looked away, the path towards genocide widened. So when we look at these images today, the block storefront, the racial charts, the crowded ghetto, the shattered glass, and the labor camps, we are not just looking at history. We are looking at warnings that whisper to us that humanity is fragile, that justice requires courage, and that silence is dangerous. And in the face of these victims, we are reminded of the most painful truth of all. These were ordinary people who wanted the same things that we wanted. They laughed, they built families, they had birthdays, they argued, they dreamed, they lived, and slowly the world around them changed. If there is one message these images leave us with us today, it is that genocide is not the only story of those who died. It is the one of the story that show how horrible humanity can become. And the greatest way to honor the people in the photos is to recognize the warning signs in our own time, so we can refuse to look away and help people in need today.